Welcome to Future Foodcast. I'm Pam Linemiller, your host. Today is going to be a really fun episode talking about the digital transformation journey that's happening and will be happening in the future in the food industry. We have with us Geert van Kempen. He is the head of Food and Beverage Strategy with Veeva Systems. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Welcome. Glad
Yes,
to be.
I'm so glad to have your perspective here because you are just working with, well, why don't you tell me what Veeva does, because we'll jump into all the detail, but you're working across the food industry, so it's exciting to have your perspective.
Indeed, yeah, we're working with a lot of larger and smaller F&B companies, food and beverage companies, to help them on that journey towards better systems to help them with their digital transformation. So yeah, companies across the world, some really international companies. We companies like Nestlé, Danone, ADM here in the US, or Campbell's Foods, just to name a few.
Yeah.
And it's part of our focused area of consumer products. So next to foods, we also have companies adjacent and sometimes overlapping between non-foods and foods. Unilever is an example here. But yeah, those are some of the customers we are honored to have. Yeah.
Yeah, and you have a rich history. I mean, Veeva as a company has been around for a while before, a lot of things were automated.
Yes, so Veeva was founded in 2007. We sometimes say we were founded in the cloud, so we only develop cloud-based software. So we're, what is it, 17 years and going at the moment? Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, that's really exciting. So you build in the cloud and you're really solution oriented. I mean, you have all different clients, but of course today we're going to talk a lot about food industry and food industry adjacent, but there are a lot of needs that are out there. So give us an example of how you can help.
Yeah, and maybe just to put it in perspective, Veeva started, the original name of the company was Verticals on Demand. Now, it's clear that Veeva is a better name for a company, but Verticals Demand illustrates what I would say the innovative thought was of our CEO. He wanted, with cloud-based software, saw the opportunity to develop excellent products specific to an industry. Veeva started in the life sciences industry, but still that value, that DNA of trying to do the best for an industry still lives large in Veeva. So also in the food and beverage industry, we want to provide solutions that are best fit for purpose for the food and beverage industry. And we want to innovate with our customers, and we do that. I mentioned Nestlé, but very specific to the food and beverage industries, of course, food safety and the management of food safety. And core of food safety management is HACCP. So we are fortunate to be the partner with Nestlé to bring them on a digital journey with HACCP, and we're developing the tools there. So illustrates again, focused on an industry and trying to innovate in something that industry needs.
Yeah, again, Harr, would you mind describing for us what HACCP means for some of our audience that might not be familiar?
Yeah, not at all. So HACCP stands for Hazard Analysis and Critical Control Points. Defined as one of the ways, one of the foundational elements of managing food safety, defined in the Codex Alimentarius, which I think most would be familiar with, but that's really the international food law, if you will, on what companies and countries needs to do to guarantee safe food, to ensure food safety. And therefore HACCP, which was originally developed in collaboration with Pillsbury and NASA to ensure that astronauts that were sent to the moon did not suffer for any food safety issues. But that concept of HACCP, developed there in the late 60s, has been evolved and is now the standard methodology within the food and beverage industry of managing food safety and identifying the particular hazards associated with the product and the way it's produced, and then finding the critical points in the process where those hazards are in full control, where they need to be in full control. That's in short HACCP.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that quick explanation. Now, you started in the, like you said, the life sciences industry, which I imagine regulatory wise was a little bit earlier in adopting the need for, data to be stored, documents to be accessible, and that kind of thing. The food industry itself, as far as we talk about maybe things that come from farmers or growers, I think the digitization was a little bit further behind, probably because of the regulatory environment. When you're in the life sciences or pharmaceutical type companies, they were more on the front end of needing to comply with some regulatory requirements, right?
Absolutely. So I would certainly agree with you that life sciences is a highly regulated industries, and where you have to be perfect, if I can say it that way, and in your day-to-day operations as well as in R&D. I mean, in life sciences, a lot of capital, a lot of the future value of the company is in its exploratory exploration of new drugs, in new molecules, right? And that's a long, highly regulated process. So Veeva is providing solutions there for the clinical trials, for regulatory registration, for doing the quality processes, and taking and helping companies be more efficient in that process, and that sometimes multiple year process of bringing new drug to the market. And again, perfection, I think, would be the key word. One misstep somewhere is probably found by the regulatory bodies and could harm the whole investment, that multi-year investment.
Exactly.
So yeah, regulation in life science is key. I would also say, because of the high regulations, it is a lot of document-based processes still. Now, you can digitalize documents easily, and our software does that well. Within the food and beverage industry, I would say it's a mixture of being efficient and being compliant. I mean, there are still regulations, and I mentioned food safety is an important part of that regulations. However, the food industry, whereas maybe the life science industry is the industry of last resort. If you're really sick, you probably want to spend a lot of money getting that drug that keeps you alive. The food and beverage is the day-to-day, your energy, your nutrition industry with a different margin, and a different, let's say, business model. It's more focused on being efficient. So also our software needs to address being more efficient while still doing the right thing. So therefore, as well, we develop different software than we do for the life sciences industry.
Sure, but I guess the point I want to bring forward is you already have a great model of the perfection, where it all needs to be right. And then digitization in the food industry itself is just a step over from that, where you can apply some of the same principles, but not all of that is required. Like you say, we're not dealing with high stakes like we are in the life sciences.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we take a lot of, let's say, foundational building blocks from our life sciences and apply them and maybe adapt them a little bit, make them a little bit more, maybe sometimes less rigid, if you will, and apply them again to food safety. And of course, that brings us innovations faster to the market and is typically to the benefit. Yep.
Well, and to your point of it needing to be cost effective, because we're talking about the everyday, and there's a price to be paid for the precision that's required in certain industries that's not necessarily required in the food industry. The digitization and being able to find the journey of the food, maybe the certifications of the food, origin of the food, whatever qualities it might have, to travel along with that, just information about it is really what's important. And of course the regulatory piece, but that's not nearly as stringent as some of the things you've dealt with before.
Fair. And if life science is very driven by, let's say, governmental regulations, and if I can use the word hard regulations, food and beverage certainly has regulations, and the Food Safety Modernization Act in North America, for example, is a strong example of how regulations have strengthened. But I think also in the food and beverage industry, there's a lot of can I call it soft regulations, non-governmental organizations, consumers that expect more and more from the food and beverage industry with regard to transparency, your point of certification, where it's coming from, and all that is requiring data to be collected, data to be shared. So yeah, I see a lot of similarities in that sense. You still need to provide the right data. Yep.
Yeah, how do you work with, I mean, because I think there's just a little bit of a resistance in the food industry, which has typically been very, very paper driven, very manually, clipboard and documenting what's being shipped or what arrives, what's being received on the loading dock, and just digitizing and investing in those systems. I imagine that's a bit of a hurdle, even though you might show there are efficiencies to be had there. I mean, are companies more open to adopting some of these since the whole industry is moving in the direction of digitizing?
Yeah, I mean, certainly the leaders in the industry that we regularly speak to, I see a recognition of what you just mentioned, that in the end, for the shop floor worker, it needs to be efficient. It should not slow him down, because if it slows down people in the factory, it slows in the end the factory down. So with regard to developing the right tools, the right hardware and software, and the right UIs that makes it very simple and very we as software developers need to develop a very detailed understanding of what the task is at hand that person needs to do, and design it according to that. But you see those leaders balancing that with the need of having a company-wide view of what is happening. That also takes a lot of, and let's say, I used to work at Unilever, and it could take weeks to gather the data from all the factories and be able to report and get a sense of across the business, what is the state of what we're doing. That is only increasing. There's more, and we just spoke about regulations, and sustainability adds another element to that. But the ability to know what is going on is an ever-increasing need. So finding the balance between making sure we know what is going on, but that where the data is entered, collected, interacted is easy to do. That is, I think, the unlock to a successful digital.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think one of the keys to successful implementation, first of all, for our non-technical audience, UI is user interface. And no, you're great. He was talking about making that easy for somebody who is working on a manual application right now. They need to be able to easily still do their job, not be slowed down, but that allows the data to be uploaded to the, maybe you call it the enterprise level of the system, or certainly up to the cloud, so that decisions can be made. And you referred to the Food Safety Modernization Act, which here in the United States, January of 2026, has regulations that are going to be put in place where the FDA wants access to certain information when they ask for it about what's been received and shipped or imported, et cetera. And there's not a way to get that data collected and in a way that it can be viewed manually. I mean, it just has to be automated. Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. The number of times that I was surprised that a lot of data was collected on paper and then stored in binders and then archived in large rooms where a week or an hour and a month later people say it's somewhere here and I need to find it to show it to an auditor. As soon as that data is, I would say, written down on a piece of paper, it's dead. You cannot access it anymore. You're very restricted in getting that data out and do something with it. So if you can type that in and put it into a system, into a database or something like that, then the data remains alive, if I can put it in that way, and you can analyze it and share it. Yeah.
Right. And business decisions can be made based on that. If you don't know what's happening, if you don't have a window into it, I mean, that's the window into it. And it's just not practical to be looking through just binders of information that are days, weeks, or months old, God forbid, but that wouldn't be very good. Well, Veeva is all involved in that. I know that you help consult with companies to figure out and how to, you're in a unique place to really help systems collaborate with one another, companies collaborate with one another.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Places in the supply chain to collaborate with one another.
Yeah, absolutely. So to your point, it is both helping companies to be more efficient within their company, but also being, and of course, these trends are already happening in the food and beverage industry, I think for at least a decade or two. It's more not a traditional linear supply chain anymore, but it is sphere of influence, a sphere of partners connecting to co-manufacturing. Co-manufacturing, of course, has increased significantly. The number of suppliers and the turnover, if you will, in suppliers has increased tremendously. So the need of being able to interact with your partners and have those partners within your system, we see an incredible demand for those type of solutions. So again, cloud-based solutions help to do that because everybody can have an access to the cloud, and whereas traditionally systems would be within the server of the company and not having any access externally. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, and I think companies are afraid of letting secret, data get out or competitive information. But the reality is the information that's needed throughout the supply chain or to collaborate with other companies is not that competitive information. It's more product specific information. What you say about, where it came from and how many pallets you had and when it arrived, what the code date is or expiration for inventory. I'm speaking out of school here. You can confirm for me, but
I think there's both. I think there's information that the companies are willing to share because it's to the benefit of the whole industry. Certainly in the area again of food safety and quality, information about where contaminants can be found, where is rising, and where basically you want to alert the whole industry to something that could really harm them. I mean, of course, a year or two ago in Europe with ethylene oxide contamination of, I mean, that kind of information companies easily want to share, but at the same point there's information around products, around raw materials where there's a competitive difference, there's a competitive edge, and you want to protect that data. So I think sharing information, you have to balance between with whom I want to share and how widely I want to share, with what I want to protect and what do I want to maybe communicate just one-on-one with that trusted partner that I have within my supply chain. So
great.
I think there's a need for both. Yeah.
That's great. And thanks for giving us a good example of when it is good to share, when you're talking about, like you said, food safety or public safety or the information that needs to be brought forward so that everyone can act on it. That's important.
And I personally, I believe that sustainability might become another area where a lot of that information will be shared, just again to the larger benefit of society, and not just to the industry. But we'll see how that evolves. But that
we will.
Yeah, we will.
If you can, gather data, anonymize it, aggregate it, and then see what's really happening, that's all going to be helpful. And I think we'll see what happens moving forward, like you said. Well, let's talk about Veeva a little bit, because you shared some information with me, just a unique perspective from your CEO and how he has structured your company and what the mission is. Can you share with our audience about that?
Yeah, so Veeva, as I mentioned, was founded in 2007, initially focused on life sciences as let's say the first vertical that we addressed. Since about 10 years, we focused on adjacent industries, consumer products, food and beverage more recently. We were founded as we're registered in Delaware. We were founded there. And at that time, we could only be founded as a regularly incorporated company. But the Delaware has updated their articles of incorporation options. And about 3 years ago, our founder, with the 99% approval of all its shareholders, reincorporated ourselves as a public benefit corporation. A public benefit corporation, I think you can compare it with something that's in the food and beverage industry popular, B certification, B certified corp. But a public benefit corporation is the expression that we are not just there for our shareholders. That is still an important stakeholder in the company, but also the board now has the legal duty as a PBC to balance the interest of our shareholders with those of our customers, with those of our employees, and the society at large. That was really what our founder wanted to do with if you would say, company that serves an industry. We're serving the life sciences industry, we're serving the consumer products industry, where the objective of the company is not just to maximize profit, but do the right thing for the industry and do the right thing for the company. So our CEO has always taken, Peter Gessner is our CEO, has taken a long view in what he wants to get, what he wants to achieve at the company. And converting into a PBC for him was the expression to build a lasting company, a company that could be there in support, in serving our industries, life sciences, consumer products, food and beverage.
Great. Thank you for sharing that.
And we were the first, we were already a public traded company, and we were the first large publicly traded company to convert into a PBC. And we were quite proud of that we got the shareholders on board to convert to that vision of building a lasting company and expressing how we want to serve the industries that we operate in. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, what is the view of what's going to be happening in the industry? I mean, we've shared a lot about, the past and when you were founded, the applications that you've worked on, opportunities that are existing right now. What are your thoughts for the industry moving forward?
You're referring to the food and beverage industry, or are you referring to Veeva as a part of the software industry?
Yeah, no, just a positive, I got a positive vibe from you when we spoke before, and I just wanted to share that because I think it's important to leave on a high note and hear that future opportunity.
Well, I think in both industries, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of, as you say, positive vibe, positive momentum. I think if I first focus on the industry we serve, on the food and beverage industry, I think in the last decade or so, I think the food and beverage industry has, to some extent, been able to pivot from being part of the problem with regard to sustainability, with regard to malnutrition and so forth, to, I think, being credible in saying we're part of the solution. We're driving the agenda in reducing plastics, improving the nutritional value of the product we sell. In that sense, probably also helping to address problems like both undernutrition as maybe overnutrition and obesity. In basically doing something good for the society at large. I think in fairness, I think you can say that food and beverage in several areas of the Sustainable Development Goals is driving the industries to do the better thing. So it's an honor for us to be helping that, to giving the food and beverage industries better tools in making that a reality. And I think digital transformation, digital tools, it's certainly one of those enablers for food and beverage companies to strike that balance in doing more while still run the industry as a business, right? You still in the end need to be profitable, because without being profitable, you cannot reinvest in doing better things. So I think that's really where we see our purpose in serving that industry and doing good. Within the software industry, I think cloud was probably the enabler for a lot of new developments and new capabilities. And of course, Gen AI, generative AI, like expressed by some of our competitors like Microsoft, but also with ChatGPT, have opened up the world for a lot of new capabilities, not of new exciting abilities to analyze data and to interact with data and so forth. And again, also we as Veeva play a role in that area and bringing those capabilities to the industries we serve. So I think in both industries, there's a lot of excitement at the moment going on. And yeah, it's fantastic to help with the abilities that we have to help the industries that we offer, that we work in. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for being on our show and sharing your perspective and expertise.
It was my pleasure. Thank you.
Yeah, we have really enjoyed the information or I have personally, hopefully our audience will as well, enjoyed the information that you brought forward. And there is a lot happening, and there are a lot of opportunities into the future for digitization to positively impact the food industry. And if you enjoyed this interview, please let us know, make a comment. We answer everyone, and subscribe so you don't miss next week's episode. Until then, I'm Pam Linemiller.
Thanks for listening to Future Foodcast. Future Foodcast is powered by Farm to Plate, the leading food blockchain platform. Subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts to stay up to date with the very latest innovations in the food industry.